G'day, listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Scouting Australia podcast, powered by Australian Property Scout Buyers Agency. I'm your host, Sammy Gordon, and today, guys, we are ready to rip in to a cracking episode. Today, we're talking about how first-time buyers can get into the market in 2026, an episode that I'm pretty excited for, breaking things down. A lot of you guys have been writing in, asking how do we get into the market, what's minimum sort of, criteria, minimum sort of budgets to get started in the marketplace today. We're sourcing lots of different style of assets that can help fit the brief for the first timers as well. And guys, in this episode too, keep your ears out and your eyes out if you're watching this thing on silent for the code word that is going to be coming for a first timer discount. Starting and kicking off with that. And then secondary to this, first episode of the year for big Mr. Teeuwsen. Mate, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back. I didn't know if I'd get a call up this year, so I thought I ended my contract for the podcast at the end of last year.
Mate, there were discussions about putting you into retirement, but you have been brought in from the deep, not substitutions, what's the rest of the squad that sit in the, whatever the rest of that
the
is?
Bench.
The bench. No, not the bench. What beyond that? I don't know. Whatever's deep on the squad. The reserves, the resis watching from the grandstands. We've brought you in for a special episode.
Jimmy's used to sitting there, but anyway.
To be fair, Brendo wasn't free today, so I think that's why you're
Brendo was supposed to come in. Apparently, he was booked back to back with deep tissue massages.
Brendo texted me before. He's sitting at home. He's sweet.
And can you tell Talia to stop writing in to get you back on the podcast? Is she like your number one?
That's her only role. Like, she does that all day.
She's employed.
She's your PR person.
And big Jimmy Ibrahim, mate, welcome back. Welcome
G'day,
back.
Sammy. Always good to see big Teeuwsen in the studio. And I'm very keen on this particular episode because there are so many people that are watching other people do things and they're thinking, well, how can I do it? So I think a lot of people out there are going to get a lot of value out of this. And even if you are an investor, you always know someone who is yet to invest. So they can forward on to their friends.
For sure, man.
So yeah,
I think it's a really great starting episode to the year, man. Same as like the predictions that we're going to be actually recording tomorrow with said Brendo and obviously Paulie Dem as well. Going to be recording that in Sydney. We're actually going to be recording that episode tomorrow, which is going to be the market property predictions for 2026 as well as the market predictions too. So excited to jump in and do that episode, mate. I think this is a perfect one to rip in and jump in to kick the year off too. We've got people coming in looking for their first deal. We've got people, their parents might be listening, maybe potentially already clients, already thinking about working with us for quite some time. Maybe your kids coming through. This could be a great episode, to listen to as well, man. So I'm looking forward to jumping in and putting the lay of the land, getting started in the marketplace in 2026. Now, boys, one of the main reasons of wanting to do this ep today as well was the fact of, obviously, like I said before, so many young and so many first timers writing in, and literally we have clients that are obviously parents of kids in their teens coming through, 20s and everything as well, going, how are they going to get into it? It's too far gone now. I can't wait to help them one day because they're never going to be able to get into it. And in all reality, and this is why I kind of wanted to do this with the two of you guys as well. We've got Lukey, head of strategy. We've got yourself there, Jimmy, on the front end, and seeing and speaking to so many clients day in, day out with this as well. And man, one of the really key things that I want to touch on, I want both of your boys' opinion on this too. But for me, it's like all is not lost, yeah. And I think the really key point is it's never been easy to get into the property market. It's never been easy to buy your first property. Yes, it's hard right now to do it, but so many people embracing rent vesting and renting where they want to live and investing somewhere else that makes sense and potentially fits within their brief and within their budget as well. Just opens the door to so many more possibilities. But the real idea around this is making people realize that all is not lost, that they definitely can get started on the journey, and then breaking down how we would get out there, how we would start, and then start to build and scale from there as well. So what are your boys' opinions around that side too?
I think it's a really good point. I mean, like, it's always been tough to buy and invest in property. I think it's always been harder to invest in property than potentially buy. I remember, like, my parents growing up, like, they worked their way up to where we actually live long term. They started out in very small houses in regional towns. I think probably what I see as well is the shift with social media and the marketing is people's expectations are probably a little bit out of whack. What you see other people doing, you don't know their story, you don't know where their funds came from, how long they've been doing it. It's like somebody looked at you and went, well, I want to do that. It's possible, but it takes such a long time. So people look at the houses, they look at canal houses, but they don't want to start at the bottom and they don't want to buy those deals that, they're deals that are those entry-level deals that are going to do very well, and then build from that and potentially sell that one and move on and build that equity base. And we talk about that in strategy calls with clients all the time is build the base. The base, you can't buy growth. And what I mean by that is you can buy well, you can buy good markets, you can buy at a discount, you can do all the right things, but growth takes time. So even if you buy the best deal and you do everything right, you're not going to have that capital base in the next 3 months. It takes time, and you're going to be doing it for a while to build that out.
Man, I think that's a really good point. That's actually perfect, dude. So many people, they look at mum and dad and they're like, oh, well, but my mum and dad, they live in this beautiful place. Like, I'll never be able to afford that, like, because of all this sort of stuff. And it's like, mate, pull it in. Let's be honest. They probably started in a shoebox piece of shit unit 50 minutes, an hour from where you are right now, where they live right now. Exactly as Zuki's saying there. They might have done the bunny hop for 30 years to then get to that point to be able to do it. But they're wanting it now, right? But the realistic piece and the realistic component of it is that expecting that now is so unrealistic, whether it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or today. It's unrealistic to expect to be able to get into what your parents might be in now in their 50s or 60s, or even looking at something like myself. But, on this journey of like literally committing my whole life to this thing for 17 years, again, you can't compare it to that. And especially to your parents too, with the, 30, 40 years they potentially have been buying, upgrading, all this sort of stuff as well. It's one of those things, man, that like people need to understand. And I think the really cool thing that so many people are embracing, especially our clients and our listeners as well, is embracing the idea of renting where they want to live, going investing somewhere else, rather than going, oh, well, I'm going to max myself to the eyeballs of a $1.5 million purchase, completely kill my serviceability, completely kill everything just to buy this one house that's kind of staying close to maybe what my friends are in, or maybe what my parents are in, or something like that. They're going, no, you know what? I can rent that for $700-800 a week. I can go buy somewhere else that's going to make me money and then replicate that and build on that as well. And I think it's, man, getting out of that psyche of needing to buy a primary residence that you would live in now, or the expectations that something like that is acceptable. It just isn't starting out, right? We all start at the bottom and we all have to build to the top. It's as simple as that, man.
I think a lot of young people forget to realize the quality of life their parents had when they were their age.
Yes.
Like, parents weren't going out for breakfast here and there. They're not going to Europe for summers. No. They're not traveling. They're not doing that. So I think people think that they're out of reality of what life was really like. Yeah. It was bloody tough for a lot of people that now, 30 years later, of course, they've got the benefit from it. So I think that's something that I find with first-time callers, Sammy. The other thing I was going to say is this podcast, for anyone listening, this is not just for young people. People trying to get into their first property, it doesn't matter what age you are, it is never too late. So I don't want people listening thinking, oh, they're only talking about people in their 20s. This could be, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or wherever, even 60s, and you want to start making your move, this is relevant for you. 100%. So tune in.
100%, man. 100%. You look at like Andy and Kelsey Marshall, mentoring clients of mine. I'll be doing podcasts with them very soon on their journey as well. But you look at like what they did, and like they started from pretty much nothing. They lost everything when they came over from the UK in their 40s, lost everything, started again, bought the primary residence, did their absolute best to try and pay it down, but they were just stuck, man. They were like up to debt ceiling to their bloody throats, and they couldn't do anything. And then, man, they've taken this investment approach to what they're doing, and they're in their 50s now, starting the journey properly now and actually starting to send it. And it's funny, man, because like they could have stayed in that debt ceiling cycle for another 10 years, finally got the house down a little bit, but then had nothing by the time I got to retirement except for that primary residence outright. And man, it's a great point to make, because exactly as you're saying there, man, like these kids these days, man, they want to have, and again, it doesn't matter whether they're 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, doesn't matter what it is. I say kids as people starting out, regardless of where you are. They want the car. They want to have a nice car because they want to have that profile. They want to be able to post it on social media. They want to be going having the smashed abos, every weekend for that sort of thing. They want to be getting their coffees multiple times a day. They want to do the Europe trip once a year. We were talking about this when we recorded a few weeks ago with our poddies that we did as well. They're not willing to go through that delayed gratification, that delayed, like you have to go through that sacrifice window if you want to build this stuff out. You and I have been talking a little bit this year specifically around legacy versus lifestyle. What is it you want to build? Do you want the lifestyle today, or do you want to build a legacy piece that gives you the lifestyle forever? And I think this is the thing that people need to really understand. What is it that you actually want out of this thing? Because don't cry poor that you can't invest, you can't afford this, you can't afford that. Zero sympathy. If you're not willing to put it in and sacrifice for a period of time to be able to afford and get started and build this thing out, zero sympathy. You've chosen lifestyle. No one else has made that decision for you. You also choose to sit and watch Netflix every night. Are you doing 38, 40 hours a week, or have you got another job doing 50, 60 hours a week? Because I know what I did when I started my portfolio. I bought my first one and built it all out. There's zero sympathy if that's the whinging that you're carrying on about, but you're not willing to do that work. You're not willing to do that sacrifice. You're not willing to cut the holidays for the next 1-2 years to then be able to afford to buy the property and start your journey. Our parents, exactly as you say, they didn't go on those holidays, man. You know, they were working 2-3 jobs a lot of the time as well. It's as simple as that, man. Like, if you're not willing to make the sacrifice to get started, and we're going to give as much of a blueprint as we can here moving into this as well. We're not just saying that's the only piece of it. But if you're not willing to go through that delayed gratification piece and sacrifice to an extent, to a level, amazing if you don't need to because you make enough money. But most of us starting out didn't and don't. But if you're not, zero sympathy. You have to be willing to do it. Otherwise, everyone would just buy property. It'd be easy as anything, right? But it isn't. It's hard, and it's always been hard. That's a piece you have to embrace to be able to do this thing and do this thing well.
Would you say in today's environment, Sammy, it is harder than ever, or do you think it's pretty similar to tough times just for people out there thinking, oh, no, it's so different now. Prices are too high.
Look, I think in terms of buying where you want to live, it potentially is harder than ever. But also like access to resources, access to information, access to even understanding the rent vesting piece of how much you would save living where you actually want to live, but renting there versus owning it, and then investing somewhere else. Like the ideology around that whole piece and the methodology and the strategic piece around that, I would argue it's actually easier now to do it properly and do it well and make more money out of property than it ever has been before. And that may be being biased, being on this side of the fence of APS and inside the curtains and seeing the results. But at the end of the day, man, the way I look at it now is I make our clients significantly more money than I ever made 15 years ago as an investor, 10 years ago as an investor, 5 years ago as an investor. We make our clients significantly more than I was making 5-10 years ago. So if we look at it from that side, I think it's easier. Yes, getting in, the same sort of thing. We're about to run through some numbers here in a second as well. Like that getting in piece might be slightly harder initially. But dude, it took me 3 years to save my first deposit. Most clients we work with, it takes them 1, 2, 3 years to save their first deposit to do it. So it's always been hard. It's always going to be hard. It's never going to be easy. It never was easy. And I think it's one of these things, man, as that acceptance piece around that, but then committing to it, bro. It's as simple as that. You're not willing to do it for 12 to 18 months to save your first deposit. If that's how long it's going to take, then mate, that's on you. It's not on anyone else because there's other people that will do it. And that's as simple as it comes.
Well, should we jump into the numbers, Lukey? Because I know you've been writing down some numbers here.
Yeah, we just want to sort of give a bit of a context. Like there's a few different disclaimers and sort of ways to look at it. Now, everyone's situation is different and what LVR you need and what, bank you need to go with and all those different things will come into it. But we just wanted to give some context around, if you're going to buy something and you're going to get professional help, what does it actually cost and look like to actually get into an asset like that? So we did 4, 5 and 600K because as we were talking about before, you don't have to start at these $1.5, $2 million PPRs to keep up with the Joneses. For a 400K deal, which is still possible in today's market, it just depends on the market and, what you're doing with it, circa 110K to get into a deal like that. 500K is around 125, 130, 600K, 145. So, within 100 to 150K in terms of funds, depending LVR and what markets you go into, it's possible to pick up a property, whether it be for owner-occupier or for investment, and it depends on where you want to live as well. But it's very, very much still, like a lot of people think, you need 200, 300, 400 grand to buy a property and, it costs so much to hold it, etc., which is all relevant concerns that you can actually work through and educate people on. Everything's scary until you learn about it. So I'm sure people are scared of lots of things out there until they actually understand what to do. But the 110K to get into a deal is still possible.
Can you, for people thinking, hold on a sec, you're giving me $400,000 as a purchase. Why do I need 110? Can you give us a very high level breakdown of some of those numbers?
Yeah, so that's what I said before as well, with professional help. Like if you're getting a professional like, buyer's agent to actually assist with you to find the location and get into there, I'm including professional services in there. So a fee to get that done for you. Things like a deposit. So, 10, 12, 20% deposit depending on, what LVR you need.
Yep.
You got, stamp duty, you got closing costs like a
building pests,
legals,
you got your solicitors, all that sort of stuff that goes through.
And then we also include a 5K buffer. So I've actually left the 5K buffer.
Oh, so the 5K buffer's in there as well.
It's still there as well. So essentially, if you settle on a deal, you don't want to be left with nothing. You generally want to have a decent buffer there. If something pops up in the first 3, 6, 12 months, you got some money set aside there to cover any maintenance that pops up as well. So, we do include those buffers in there to allow people.
Because you need to as well, man. Because someone could go out and work the numbers on exactly what it would cost just for them to go out and do it, especially whether they were to do it themselves or not, which in reality is one of the most dangerous things you can do as a first-time buyer, not really understanding what you're doing and going out and doing it yourself. And I understand why people would potentially look to do that, especially starting out, trying to save themselves some money when they're initially doing it. But the only thing is, man, if you don't know what you're doing, which most people, especially starting out, they don't know what they're doing, and even if they're trying to take advice from mum or dad who might have a property or two, it's like if you get that first deal wrong, like how long, re-engineer how long it takes for you to save, let's say $100,000 to get back out there in the marketplace again. Because if you get that deal wrong, with buying the wrong market, you buy at the wrong price, that can literally be the most costly exercise that you'll ever do in your life, by buying the wrong deal as well. So, yeah, man, that's something to, I guess, factor in on that side. But again, it's like when Lukey reads out his numbers there and he factors in things literally like a maintenance buffer, it's because when you buy a deal, people might run it to the full, teeth of the eye as tight as they can, and it might come out at, let's say, 80K or something like that, 75, 80 grand, something like that. But they haven't included, these things, especially things like your maintenance buffer. And then they buy it and they let's say it's 75 grand, they've got 80 grand in the bank. They go, yeah, sweet, I'm all good. But then they have that, or let's say even they're going to buy it almost at the exact amount that they have, and and then these little things pop up that always pops up once they buy. There's no way you buy a property and something doesn't pop up. It just happens almost every single time. Like,
not a matter of if, it's just when.
It's such a rarity for nothing to pop up in a property. And we producer Kel, who manages my portfolio, and we have a bit of a laugh when we talk about she's laughing here, shaking her head that it's apparently not funny.
She's crying actually.
That it's almost funny when there's like properties that are just like the ones that never have an issue, or like never have something pop up, because it's property. We're dealing with bricks and mortars, and bricks and mortar and people, and something almost always pops up in a property as well. So like, you have to factor these things in, and that's why when we run our numbers, we're conservatively on that sort of stuff, so we know we've got a little bit extra fat in there in case something does, whether it's in the building and pest or it pops up in the first 3 to 6 months, beyond that point as well. So, and that's just being prudent, man, and being intelligent, wise with it. So yeah, we're talking circa 100, 105, 110K getting into the first deal. Realistically, that's what you need right now to get into the marketplace.
Okay, playing devil's advocate, people listening to this are going, well, hold on, Sammy. The government's just come out with this 5% deposit scheme. I don't need anywhere near that. What would you say to them?
Look, I think when it comes to government grants and when it comes to things like the first home buy 5% deposit scheme, look, I actually don't think it's a bad thing to have been brought into the equation. I think as investors, especially with properties already in the marketplaces that are going to be affected by it from a growth perspective, I think having things like that in the mix, it's good for us because it causes markets to grow. Now, the issue is if you're trying to take advantage of that as a first home buyer, you are going to be dictated by where you would like to live by the asset that you buy. And the issue is 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, where you want to buy is not going to be the strongest growth location in Australia. Now, if you've got no other opportunity and it's going to take you another 12 to 24 months to save the remainder of your deposit to be able to buy something, let's say like we're talking about here, then man, I'm not opposed to it. Like if people listening to this right now, they think they can buy in somewhere and they think it's going to be, and let's be realistic when we say we think it's going to be a half decent asset, be realistic about that as well, right? If they think it's going to be okay and they're talking, let's say they're at 40 grand and they can get into something and it's going to take them every year, the most they could save is 20 grand a year. That's 3 years so they're going to be able to buy a place, right? Actually to get to the 100,000. Man, if that's a position that they're genuinely in and they have no other way to get into the marketplace, then yeah, I would take advantage of it. If they were at 40, 50 and they knew it was going to take them another 2 years to get in the marketplace, yeah, I would do it. But be strategic about it. Don't be an idiot. Don't just rush in and buy whatever. Don't rush in and bid with 50 other people on the same property because you're going to overpay and you're going to be buying at inflated prices. So if you're going to go down that route, still be careful and still be wise. And what I would say is like, if you have the ability to buy, or let's say, especially in the next 6 months, get to that deposit level to be able to buy something differently like we're talking about here, I would definitely opt for that option because the ability you're going to have the correct exposure to the correct markets to make the money you need to make to keep scaling a portfolio, perfect. Like that's what we actually want to get our money into the marketplace for. The other component of this too is, and if you're a parent listening to this and your children have no interest whatsoever in actually building a portfolio, they just want to buy their own home, yeah, I'd embrace it. If that's what you can do to get into the marketplace and you don't actually intend to build a portfolio, yeah, if you can get in the market and utilize this to get into the marketplace, for sure, get in and do it. But if you're looking to build a portfolio, and as we're sort of saying here as well, build a legacy piece around building a big portfolio, then I would be avoiding it unless it made a lot of sense. Look, you look like you're about to throw something in. It's either a stunned mullet, you've seen a ghost, there's a ghost behind me, or you want to throw something in.
It's stitched up here. So there was actually an interesting article that came out on the AFR on the 16th, so only 2 days ago, from filming. So change 5% deposit
From filming?
scheme. Yeah, filming today.
Okay,
2
right.
days ago from the filming day.
Sorry. Yeah. All right.
So titled Change 5% Deposit Scheme by IMF warns. So the International Monetary Fund has warned Labor's 5% deposit policy will drive up house prices and called for the Albanese government to limit the program to purchases of new homes only.
Yeah.
Just to give the listeners some context, the International Monetary Fund is an international financial institution and specialized agency of the United Nations. So based in Washington, D.C., consists of 191 member countries.
So we're talking about someone that monitors monetary policies around the globe, are telling the Albanese government to limit this thing. Now, the funny thing about this was the Albanese government now, hang on a second. I'm trying to figure out what word I can use here that isn't going to be offensive. Through their divine wisdom, supposedly forecast that the market was only going to rise by 0.5% or something in their divine wisdom, again, over a 5-year window. It did over 10% growth before it was even enacted in the 2 to 3 months before from when it was announced to when it was enacted, let alone the other 20 to 30% that it's experienced since then. So
bro,
in their divine wisdom... They have brought down the gods of the monetary policy of the...
It gets way better. They've doubled down on that. So the article goes on to say, spokesperson for the housing minister, Claire
Sam Gordon.
O'Neill...
For the IMF.
Judge, he's in. Housing minister Claire...
By the way, I don't know how producer Kelly's going to clip that up, but like, it's just, I'm doing everything I can. I'm still saying
to stay calm.
But yeah, I mean...
Spokesperson for the housing minister, Claire O'Neill, said in response to the IMF report that's been released that the scheme would not lead to a material increase in house prices. The expansion of the scheme will have a very minor impact on prices, with modelling from the Treasury pointing to a 0.6% increase over 6 years.
Oh, wow. 0.1% a year. Yes, we're already about 30 times past that, love.
30 times, I love it. So, yeah, 0.1% a year, Sammy, over 6 years. So
I think we're doing about 0.1% a day at the moment.
Strap in, because...
Would you take the role of housing minister if they said, look, we could use you?
I think we need it. Do
you think you could do it?
Yeah, let's do it. Can we do a press release? Call Marky Boy.
I mean, you might be fired in the first hour.
I don't care, but if I can bring about some changes, let's do it.
I think one of my issues with that as well is the Minister for Housing actually has 3 titles. So I think they hand out titles like lollies these days, but Minister for Housing, Minister for Homelessness, and Minister for Cities all at the same time. I feel like that's a large package.
What's Minister for Cities?
Oh, but it's just, I think they just get paid more. The more titles they have, the more ministers.
Can we put some more titles on my? I'm just like, what am I still? Director or something? Head of strategy? I don't know. Something. Just random bloke that walks in.
Chief Offensive Officer.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm amazing at that.
If the legal team's listening, please protect me from any backlash. So,
was there anything else on that? In that?
No, pretty much. Like only 2 days ago that came out. But a global institution comes out and warns of the 5% impact and. We're then talking about, the 5% for first home buyers and, the impact it's having on the market and getting them in and using that. If there is an opportunity to use it, with global institutions coming out and criticizing it, how long is it before there is some changes? And, the modeling and the data off the back of what's happened to the market off the back of the policy is reviewed and they go, oh, well, it actually is more than 0.6.
It is the most ridiculous policy. It's the most ridiculous statement to believe it's only going to be 0.1%. It's going to be a material change, 0.1%. All markets would have lifted at those price points by at least 10% since that was released. They're like as a minimum, right? So the fact that they've come out and said that, man, it is ridiculous that they would come out and say that. They are
doubled down
bumbling buffoons.
But do you think
they know what they're doing?
Do you think they can hide behind the growth? Because you can't really point it specifically to that. Is that where they can sort of get away with it?
You would be able to point specifically to it by saying how many grants came through. You know what though? It's like investment loans. I was having a chat with one of our research guys the other day. Investment loans are now at the highest point I think that they've ever been in almost every capital city. Almost more than 50% of all loans being written at the moment. What city was it? Was it Brizzy or Perth or something like that? Was now at over 50% of buyers was
investment.
That. Yeah.
Investment.
Yeah, and I reckon what the easiest way to be able to actually drill down on that and how much of an impact it was how many of those locations are sub the price caps in those capital cities. I reckon you run that one through, and I reckon it's a pretty compelling argument from that perspective. So I think these guys have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They don't know how to run a country. They certainly, they think they're trying to fix this housing crisis. Holy hell, they are going to make it so much worse than it's ever been before.
I think my issue with it is like, if you've got got a global institution coming out and criticizing you, and then you go, "Oh, we're not going to remodel it. We're not going to recheck it. You're just going to double down and commit to the initial modeling." Like, actually review it and see what impact it's had before you come out and then go harder down that path.
100%.
So,
They're going to get dragged out of
interesting.
the coals for this one.
I was just going to say, Sammy, so people reading that article and just following the wrong news channel can easily be persuaded to make the wrong decision. So for first home buyers, just to reiterate how important it is for their education, just to understand where are you getting your information and who are you following in order to make an informed decision. On the front end, we always say the best way to mitigate risk is you need to get better and you need to know more. That's the fastest way you can mitigate risk in any decision you make, let alone investing. And this just highlights where people can be really led up the garden path by making an error in their decision based on information like that.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, a lot of our clients actually read a lot and they actually research it because they're in that space. Even articles like that, the Financial Review, there's, you know, take it with a grain of salt. There's good and bad in anything. You got to read through the noise and actually pull out the information that you need. But knowledge is power. You go out and educate yourself and make a decision off the back of it. It's the same as what we do with the podcast.
Okay.
Trying to teach concepts and show people what to do. As to if they do that or not, that's up to them.
All right, so we've got our numbers, right? Because Lukey went through the numbers there, Sammy. And there is a little question before we move to the next segment about some people will be thinking, well, hold on. There is an opportunity that I could use a guarantor in this setup, so I don't need the full 110. Is using a guarantor misunderstood from a lot of people? They don't understand really how it works, and should they get better educated if that is a possibility? Yeah,
for sure. I mean, I think if they're lacking the ability to purchase, I think having a conversation like both from potentially deposit and servicing perspective, it's definitely worth the conversation of going down the guarantor route. I know we are seeing more and more people with their parents coming in from that perspective. We've always had it. There's always been a pretty active cohort of our specifically first-time buyers coming through and embracing that from a guarantor perspective as well. Might be worth doing a little bit more on that, potentially in a separate podcast specifically around guarantor loans. If you guys want to hear it, write in and let us know. And at the same time, I'm going to drop the code word for the first time at discount because we may as well throw it in right now. I'm going to go off topic. Fugazi.
I've got a feeling you haven't vetted that by anyone. You've just gone off the cuff. Is that right? The producer is nodding.
Vetted what?
He doesn't need to vet anything.
Why don't I need to vet anything? It's my decision.
It's an executive decision.
So it shall be written. So it shall be
My
done.
title is Executive Decision Maker and Chief Offensive Officer. All right?
I love that. So it is written, so it shall be done.
Do they need to spell it correctly, or is it just as close enough as good enough?
No, they need to spell it correctly. They have to.
So what do
Spell
they
it
get
out.
for this code word?
They find out when they call up and give the code word.
All right. So it's only...
It's the first time a discount. By the way, it's the first time you have ever bought a property. Don't go, it's the first time buying an APS. Doesn't matter. First time you're ever buying a property.
Okay.
All right? I want to help out the people. Because in all honesty, I'd love to be able to help people out, as many people as I can, to actually specifically get started. Because I know it is hard and everything counts. So, yes.
Well, segueing then, Sammy. So if someone is able to actually get into their first deal, what kind of asset should they be buying? What are they looking at?
Well, I think, man, what it really comes down to, fundamentally, the market has specifically changed in the last 12 months. 12 to 24 months, man, so much has changed out there in the marketplace. I believe what it comes down to, regardless of where you're buying house, units, apartments, whatever it is, I think you need to understand the dynamic of the market that you're buying in and whatever the relevant asset type is within that market that you can afford. So if a market ticks all the boxes that you want to get into, regardless of asset type and asset class, we're active in those markets at the moment. So, that's probably the easiest way to put it. And then again, if your budget dictated by that, it's like, okay, sweet, what market makes the most sense? And again, we're strategizing that internally and with clients and then with the research team, with the strategy team, all day long, all day, every day, making this thing super refined for each specific brief and each specific client that comes through of what's the budget we've got to work in, what's the utility that we're trying to achieve for this client. So are they needing something with a stronger yield? Are they needing something with a big discount off the back or a big equity uplift from the side of it from that as well? Or do they need a nice balanced mix between the two? And then we'll obviously decide from that point and dictate what style of asset in what style of market that we'll put into there as well. So, man, in all reality, it's all determined by all those sort of factors combined as to what is going to be the correct asset type at the budget you've got in the location that we think is the best for you as well, to then go and pick the correct asset.
So you're not discounting anything. It's not as if you're saying, no, we're not going to do that.
Not discounting anything, man. Like in all reality, man, like there's been some areas where units have outperformed houses, where townhouses outperformed units, where houses have outperformed both by, 50%, in so many of these markets as well. So it's understanding the driver, the catalyst of the drivers that are going to drive a market to its peak, and what you are going to benefit from the most from that. And man, at the moment, we're not holding anything off the table. It depends on what actually fits the bill and what we believe is going to deliver specifically from a growth perspective for our clients,
especially
and for ourselves, man, as well.
If you can't get into a deal because you don't have enough money and you're holding out on a particular asset type and it's going to take you another 2 or 3 years, you got to get in with what you can, right?
Dude, I remember back in the day, people would say to me like, and this was obviously back in the day, right? But back in the day, people would be like, oh, I don't want to buy something in that area. Like if that's all, like if I can only afford to buy that for now, my deposit's only enough to buy a 250 grand house in Perth, I'm not going to do it. Fuck, mate. That was a conversation 3-4 years ago. That's worth 750 now. It's worth 650, 750 now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't discount anything ever. Like, and it always, like, the strategy can always change. And got to remember as well, we're talking about growth assets. I don't make these decisions lightly when it comes to anything, but when it comes to growth properties, we know we're selling out of them. We're not buying forever. So I don't really care about anything to do with the asset except that it's going to perform the way that I'm anticipating it to perform over the next 3 to 5 years. Then I clip it, then I move it on. Either buy more of them or I put it into commercial. Commercial's different and cash flow is different because you need an asset that's going to perform over the long term and continue to produce what you need over the long term from a cash flow perspective and from a continual renting that property out perspective, right? So that's a different conversation to growth. When it comes to growth, what's going to give us the best return over the next 12, 24, 36 months, 5 years, all the rest of it? That's what is the big deciding factor on every asset class we get into and every location that we enter and every property that we source for a client.
Great. Lukey, anything you want to comment on that?
Nah, I can't build on that. That's perfect.
Anything else from your list, Sammy? Because I think we've pretty much nailed. Any last talking points?
Man, I think the only things I probably want to finish off with here is the imperative thing to remember is that mindset is really important when you're getting into your first deal. And you may be, like we said before, 6-12 months away, or you might be, ready to go in, pretty soon as well. It's one of these things, or you may be literally at the very start and you've just come out of a divorce and you got nothing, or you've just, whatever, you've just had to spend a shitload of money on something to fix something and your bank account's at zero and you're starting again. I think what's really, really important to remember is who you become on the journey, yeah? So we talk about the thing, it's not the destination, it's a journey. And it's not that the journey is enjoyable, it's who you become on that journey. And if you need to save and you can only put away 20 grand a year or whatever, and maybe you've bought a house in the past, so you're not even eligible for the 5% deposit scheme. Maybe you went broke and you had a business that went under. Maybe it's something like that, and you legitimately have to get to that deposit level again. And it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 years, whatever it is. As hectic as that is and as hard as it is, all the greatest stories and all the greatest, strongest people that I've ever met and I've ever come across, and I include myself a lot in that as well with the resilience and what I've built and done over a long period of time too, it all comes from doing that shit that no one else was ever willing to do. Yeah? And again, the person you come through that and putting away, whatever it is you can put away a week, and you put away 200, 300, 500,000, whatever it is a week that you can put away, then scale to that next level. And again, don't complain if you're only doing 38, 40 hours a week, it's going to take you, 2-3 years to get there. Well, what if you did another 20 hours a week as a secondary job, worked the weekends, gave up your weekends for a year, but saved another 30 grand in that 12 months? Like, what if that was all pure savings? You saved another 30, 40, 50 grand, and you literally brought a 3-year journey down to 12. What's the conversation then? What's that look like from that piece then? No one will ever be able to take that away from you if you build that. The person you'll come through that as well. And so, man, I think it's one of these things like, understand that it is not supposed to be easy, and that's okay. Whether you're 20, 30, 50, 60, whatever it is, it's not supposed to be easy. But when you get into it, when you start it, and when you can get those runs on the board and actually make a start, man, what you can build for yourself and what you can create for yourself is unimaginable. It genuinely is. It took me 3 years to save my first deposit. It took another 3 years to buy the next deal because I didn't buy the first property when I bought the first property, right? And I didn't understand the game. I didn't know what I was doing from that end. You have to understand it when you're getting through. But again, getting to that first deal, make sure you buy the first one. Make sure you understand everything about it. Understand what the process is, why we're trying to do this. The same as what we were talking about before when we were talking about different asset classes. What asset are you trying to buy? What are we trying to get out of this deal? Do we need a balance of cash flow and growth? Can we go all in for growth? Do we need to target the strongest cash flow markets we have that still are good for growth? What's the balance? Is make sure we're putting the right property in the portfolio that's going to set you up to strip equity in 3, 6, 12 months, whatever it is, to pull out and do another deal. Because remember, that is the most important piece when it comes to getting into the market for your first property. It is making sure you're buying the right asset that is going to continue to perform to give you the ability to keep moving forward as well. It is not a singular deal. It is not a singular purchase. Remember, we're talking about continuing to be able to buy, build the portfolio as well. To build the right mindset, accept that it is not supposed to be easy to do this thing. Figure out what you can do in your current situation right now. What else could you do to fast track that journey as well? Is there anyone you could ask for? Is your parents? Is it grandparents? Anyone? Could they guarantor? Could they give you a gift of 20, 50, 100K? Something like that to get started, whatever it is. Just throwing these ideas out there. Don't let any doors be closed without banging on them. Because at the end of the day, the only person that you can report to and look in the mirror and actually know if you gave it your all and asked every question and got the job that you needed to get it, or ask the question to get that extra little bit deposit to get it together, is you. There's no one else. Man, we're not going to go work for you guys listening here on this thing. We're not going to go out there and work for you to make you another 20 grand to buy your first deal. You have to do that. Whether it is gifted or you make it or whatever it is, you are the one that has to go out there and do that as well. So you need to embrace it, accept that it's going to be hard, know that there's a bigger picture, a bigger journey for it. Remember, anyone that knows their shit, we all know this. We always say this. The hardest deal is always your first. Get yourself to the first deal, utilize the right team to make sure you don't make a mistake on your purchase, or research the hell out of it if you don't want to go down that path to make sure you don't make the mistake as much as possible, and then keep pushing forward. Don't leave it at number one. Anything you boys want to throw in?
Pretty much, yeah, off the back of that, probably the main thing is a recap of what we were talking about earlier. Rome wasn't built in a day. Pretty much, you have to start somewhere and build up. Your first houses were cardboard boxes, weren't they, Sammy? Pretty
100%.
much.
My first one was a unit at 275 that nearly doubled, so 525. But then the next ones were actually I did a build for the next one, but then I was buying fibro shacks and weatherboard shacks and pieces of shit.
That's it,
and that's when my journey actually went hard. Not when I was buying the pretty and building the pretty stuff. It was when I was buying the shit,
the ugly ducklings.
100%. That's when it started to scale.
But I think social media is a big part of that, and people's friendship groups and all that sort of stuff. They're wanting to buy in with their friends and in the right suburbs and in these nice areas that's close to the nice cafe and all this sort of stuff. So I think there's definitely a shift in society around people that are actually not as concerned with being in that nice house now, happy to push that off and do that in 10, 15, 20 years time, and actually go after building that base. Start from something, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be $1 million, $1.5, $2 million deal. You can start at a 400, 500, 600K deal and still do very, very well and build that capital base. So it's the same thing we talk about in our strategy calls. Build the base, get things rolling for you, get that compound happening and that snowball effect that we've always talked about. And what you can do over the course of a long period of time. I was talking to Sammy before we jumped on this. We've got a couple of clients that are on 70, 75K single incomes that have 2 or 3 properties. Even if they don't do anything else for another 12, 18 months,
it's crazy,
2 years,
isn't it?
they've done such a good job. And people are like, oh, you need 100 grand plus, 150 grand plus. No, we have clients that are on 75K that have 2 or 3 deals. Now, those deals will eventually be sold off. That capital base thing can be scaled. So servicing is always going to be an issue, but we can continue to rotate and do things on that side as well. So yeah, probably the biggest thing I'd say is, ignore the noise. Social media, you don't actually know their story. You don't know how long they've been doing it for. They've gone through the fibro shacks to get to where they're at. So, block out the noise and have a crack. I think one of the points that we didn't touch on is, we also get a lot of people go, I'll wait for the next property crash and then I'll go then. You had crashes in 2000, you had GFC, then you had COVID. There'll be something else in 5 years' time. There'll be something else 20 years' time. You don't know when it will be and no one can forecast it. So, you just have to do with the information you have and have a crack and, work ahead.
Well said, gents.
Anything from yourself, Jimmy?
It was just one thing. It just reminded me when I'm speaking to clients. Fear is normal, and I think the maximum amount of fear is before you do your first purchase. So when I have conversations with couples, usually one of them says, "Oh, I'm really keen to do this, but my partner, they're really fearful. They just weren't brought up like that." And I said, "That's normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. We all have fear." So the better question is, how do I mitigate fear? So don't get it out of your head that you're just going to be fearless. That doesn't happen. You are going to be fearful, and it's about mitigating the risk and overcoming the fear. And that's why when you get the right education, the right team, and the right strategy, those things minimize your risk. So for the people listening out there, we have all been there. We have all faced the fear. Unfortunately, you have to go through it.
Yeah.
Everything that you said, Sammy,
100%.
that's who you become.
For sure.
That is going through the fear.
Yeah.
So you have to go through that door. Otherwise, you're never going to get the outcome.
I had some crazy scary moments, man. Like I had moments where like I had to potentially walk away from it. I mean, I was a low income earner, right? When I was on PAYG. I remember when COVID hit and I had to make this one always sticks in my head of needing to actually there was a couple my first ever build. I remember taking this builder that I wanted to build on, and they immediately looked at it and they go, "You can't fit a house in this building envelope." How scared do you think I was? I was 22. You can't actually build on this block. And man, can you imagine how I felt at that time? And I was stuck in the way of like, because I had it so fixated that I was going to build with this builder that someone that I knew had built with, and they were so because they were specky builder, they weren't pliable with their designs. And man, I was so scared for like ages because I was going to different specky builders, wouldn't do it, and then I finally found one that was just that slight next tier up that was more malleable with their designs, and they fitted on. But for like 2-3 months, man, I was shitting myself that I was never going to be able to build on this thing that I'd bought. And I think about another block that I bought in COVID that I was waiting to settle, and I'd bought it like 6 months before, bought it off the plan. This little dual lock site that I'd bought, and then COVID hit just as I was about to settle on it, and they cut the funding. The lender that I was going to use cut the funding, and all this cash that I'd put aside ended up having to go. I can't remember if I bought it with the cash or I bought it with shark money to settle the block and then built with cash. I can never remember which one it was. This is going back nearly 10 years or whatever it was. It was COVID. It was 6 years ago now, pretty much to the day, roughly, when it all happened. And man, like it was all this money, all this firepower that I had sort of sitting on the sides that I was planning to smash into the marketplace, and I had to put almost all of it into this. It was either the build or the land to settle this thing, and I had to make a decision because the market immediately pulled back by 10-15% in the location where I bought it down the Southern Highlands. And man, I had to make a decision of, do I walk away from my deposit, which was 10%, which I think I paid $265 or $275 for the block. So, and I'd already paid stamps because stamps is due 3 months post settlement. So I'd paid roughly $35,000 with the 10% deposit plus stamps, $35,000. Dude, I was only making like 70, 80 grand a year. Or maybe 80, that might have been when I was at the top of what I was earning was 91 grand a year, which was still post-tax, probably almost half of my income that I had to make a decision, do I walk away from it or I settle this thing that at the moment is declining and going backwards, right? And it's like, man, imagine the fear and the pit of your stomach, like trying to make a decision around that. And like, yeah, it was crazy, man. And it's normal. And you want to build a portfolio like this, you're going to have fear, whether it's your first deal, whether it's your 10th deal, whether it's something that pops up in the journey, it's always going to happen. And it's not, and there would be so many other pieces that I would have had where I've settled a property and then found out something about a property that I just wasn't aware of. And as an experienced investor that I didn't know to look for those things before it. And then it pops up after. And it's like a $5,000 thing for me back then on a minimum wage was huge, right? Or especially making $50K a year. So there's all these different things that are just like, they were things that you guys get the benefit of almost always avoiding now getting to work with people like a team like us, where like that was genuine fear of not knowing and not having anyone actually be able to talk to help you with it. You know what I mean? Like this stuff, but it's all natural and you get past it all. And the simple fact of, and again, that's why I say like using people to know what they're doing when you start eliminates 95% of the mistakes you could potentially make, if not more, right? By doing something like that, and a decision like that. And yes, there's a cost associated with it, but eliminating, you think about let's say risk profile on a deal, eliminating it by 90% plus, 95, could be 99%, you're eliminating it by, like, that's a bloody no-brainer. So,
just on that point, Sammy, not only are they minimizing that 95% risk, but what I think people don't realize is they're giving themselves the biggest upside opportunity. So if you compound both of
double
those...
whammy, mate. Bloody double whammy.
It is a double whammy because people don't realize the amount of research that we do in areas and all the due diligence that they don't have to do. Not only are you mitigating that downside, but you're giving yourself the best chance to win.
Yes.
That's
minimizing the downside,
difference.
Maximizing the upside.
So that's why you're paying a fee. That's the exchange.
That's the new tagline. We're removing retiring 500 by 2030, and we're replacing it with minimizing the downside, maximizing the upside.
You can have it.
Done.
You can have it. Anything
Done.
else before we wrap this up?
No, we'll remove you from the studio as we remove that as well. But no, man, as a couple of final points, boys, I just want to hammer home being realistic with what you're trying to buy. Don't expect to be able to go out there and buy what your parents, are in right now, what you see other people buy. Don't be sidetracked by that. You don't know how many people are actually up to their eyeballs in debt that are actually struggling to afford it if they're similar ages to you. Everyone puts on this pretty facade that everyone's killing it, but at the end of the day, almost everyone's struggling in these debt ceilings by doing things like that as well. And then obviously Jimmy's point before around that delayed gratification piece as well, and understanding the level of sacrifice you need to do around this thing, understanding that it is a hard component that you are gonna have to go through and again become through this process. And as the final point, guys, fugazi, codeword fugazi. Jimmy, you look like you're about to say one final thing.
No, I was just going to say, even if you're looking at your parents, right?
Yes.
Do you want the life that your parents have done? They've got one property, which they've got all of their money tied up in equity.
They're probably still working. Yeah.
So even if you think about that, do I want that outcome? No. Most people will say no. So then don't want what they've got.
Yeah.
It is the opposite of what you want. So don't go down that road that they did, because otherwise you're going to end up in the same position.
I'm with you. Boys, thank you for jumping in, for joining us. It's been a good episode. I hope people took a lot of value out of it. If you did, please make sure you send it on to someone else that you think would love to listen to this thing and be inspired to get started, get those next steps, get that first deal underway where they're starting, saving, whatever it is. Please send this episode on. It always means a massive amount to us. And until next week, guys, that's another Scouting Australia podcast.